How you doing, guys? This is Eric from Wasteland.com. I'm giving a shot at doing a live stream. I've never done one before. I actually couldn't do one for a few months because I had some community guidelines BS strike, so I don't honestly know if this is even working. So somebody show up in chat if this is working yet. I don't know if it shows where I have viewers. I've never done these before. I think this is viewers up here. This is a big fat goose egg. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I've never done one of these before, so I'm not 100% sure that this is working. Throw something up in the chat if you guys are seeing this. I'm seeing number 2 up there, so I think I got 2 people watching, maybe even 4. So let me know what let me know if this is working. I have an article I'm going to talk about here in a minute if we get a few people in here and I can make sure this thing's actually working. But for those of you who, if it is working right now and you're already watching, make sure to sign up on my email list, which is on the website, rulethewasteland.com. I'm going to be giving away some of this stuff from BattleBox. Most of the stuff I'm probably going to be giving away to my Patreon subscribers. So if you're interested in that, even something like $2 makes a difference. All right, looks like chat's working. What's up, Mike? You guys have something that, exactly, right? You're dreaming. I've never gone live before. I think I'm going to be well suited for it, though. I'm good at babbling about nothing and everything in particular. So if you guys have something that you want me to talk about, just go ahead and throw it up there. In the meantime, I'm going to talk about this article that's been making its way around our corner of the web, which is an MIT computer model predicts the end of date for civilization. It predicts that there's going to be a drastic decrease in life in 2020 and a full-on apocalypse, resource-related, by 2040. So what do I think about this? First of all, if you look at the article, the computer model was made in 1973. So I'm using the term computer very loosely there. Even if they had the same technology that they did now, which obviously they did nowhere near the same amount of technology, they don't have the same information that they do now. You know, the same technology in terms of stuff other than computers is drastically changed. The resource situation's drastically changed. Just look at what they were saying about oil back then. You know, they had certain numbers for how much oil we had, and that was supposed to run out. They couldn't even factor in the technological advancements that have allowed us to get shale oil and things like that, which they say there's like multiple Saudi Arabia's worth of shale oil in North America alone. So that happens with other things too. Different technological advances in farming and things like that have allowed us to stretch resources out. Things like GMO, as bad as they can be, have increased global food production and stuff like that. So I'm really not putting too much stock in a computer model that was made in '73, predicting something insane happening in less than 2 years. I mean, something crazy will happen in 2020. Better believe it. But it's not going to be bad. And by 2040, I think we'll definitely be seeing some drastic upheavals in what we consider our modern way of life. What's up, guys? Hey, Kelly. Hey, Irish Buddha. Do you ever hear of Kratom? Have I ever heard of Kratom? Yeah, I have multiple videos on Kratom. I don't know if you're joking or not. The Deagle report, someone's asking about. Why does that sound familiar? I honestly don't know what that is off the top of my head, but I will look it up. Is it going to be some sort of meme shit today? Is that for world population thing? I'm going to have to read on that. I don't know enough about that to comment on it right now. And I've heard the name. But as far as this apocalyptic computer model for the end of civilization, I'm not putting too much stock in that. I mean, just look at the stuff that they were saying about climate change and things like that is 5, even 10 years ago. None of that shit has panned out. I do think there could certainly be a lot of socioeconomic and civil unrest, upheaval, stuff like that. But in terms of resources, we don't have a resource problem right now in the world. There's plenty of, even for food, I mean, there's plenty of capacity, at least, even if the food isn't being produced now, to feed everyone in the planet. There's just misallocation of resources. Look at how much fertilizer, potting soil, water is going into stuff like lawns and ornamental plants alone, or how much food and stuff is going to pets and stuff like that. If it really came down to it, you could probably double global food production without even really changing what we're doing, just by reallocating the resource. Not changing how we're doing it anyway, but just reallocating the resource. Ham radio. Yep, ham is super important. People are talking about it in the chat because I've been trolling of road preparedness. She made a video about ham radio, and she kept making all these comments about how amazing ham was, and it was just hilarious because I was like, if this is talking about actual ham, it would be really funny. So then I've been relating everything in her channel to hams. Kelly Diggs says we should be going gardens instead of lawns. I absolutely agree with that. And unfortunately, a lot of places, they won't let you grow anything in your front of your property, at least, except for weeds that they call grass. You have to be a very particular type of weed. If it's the wrong type of weed, they get mad at you. If your weeds get too long, they get mad at you. If it's actually a productive plant of any kind, they probably get mad at you. But if it's a very specific type of weed that you keep at a very specific length, then it's totally fine to spend an infinite amount of resources on it. It's kind of ridiculous. One thing you can do is choose ornamental bushes that are actually productive. In some places, you could use blueberries. You could, of course, plant as many trees as possible, fruit trees, nut trees, things like that. Look into somebody like David the Good and Food Forest. There's a lot of plants that you can use that would be edible, different sort of even flower arrangements and stuff that aren't necessarily going to be vegetables or really obvious gardens, but in an emergency it could still be edible, and you could replace a lot of the landscaping on your property with stuff like that. Yeah, lemongrass, stuff like that's a good example. Thanks, Palmetto. Yeah, I'm going to hopefully be doing some live streams. Interlaken, Florida, says OFC Roll. That's right from my old neck of the woods. I lived in Gainesville for 15 years and just recently moved out here to Vegas. So loving it so far out here. Speaking of Vegas and lawns, that's one thing you don't have to worry about a lot of places here is having lawns. If you can do a lot of xeriscaping, cactuses, stuff like that. I'm still blown away by how many people do choose to have real grass and lawns. Not that many, but the fact that anyone does it here is kind of ridiculous. College professor says any plant undesirable in its location is a weed. It's a good way of putting it, but that definition isn't really useful. Heard about the magma caldera in California. It seems like there's magma calderas everywhere these days. Obviously, Hawaii is having a big magma flows. It's not nearly as dangerous there because it does flow out. So obviously the lava flows can destroy things, but you don't, with active volcanoes, you don't tend to have as much of those massive eruptions because they kind of ooze out. Whereas if it's an older semi-dormant volcano that has lots of, sediment and stuff on top of it, the pressure can build up and cause an actual eruption. Or it's something that happens regularly, it just tends to just kind of ooze out. So California's been having a lot of wildfires, I know. Haven't heard anything specifically about a unique caldera to them. Obviously, the Yellowstone super caldera that's in the southwest region here of the United States is overdue by like 100,000 years or something. But in geological timeframes, that's like saying somebody's 5 seconds late to your party. So it's not really that significant. Electrical storms have gotten stronger here on the Gulf Coast of Alabama. It does seem like weather's been kind of severe this year. I don't know if that's anything meaningful, but it has been, we're getting reports of everything. One thing people have to understand too is when you hear about things like wars, weather, stuff like that, it seems like there's a lot more of it now than there was maybe 20, 30 years ago, but information is just being shared a lot more readily too. So we're hearing about stuff from all over the world. We're hearing about it in real time. People don't tend to share information about mundane things or even happy things a lot of time. They just focus on the crazy stuff. So you're constantly getting inundated with stories about this crazy stuff. It makes it seem like it's happening more often than it is. And stuff like violent crime is a good example of that. You hear about all these horrible, crazy crimes that are happening everywhere because we just have a very good, very easy ways to share information. But crime is actually a lot lower than it was in like the 70s and 80s. It's a lot easier to access that information. It gets shared much more quickly. Wanted to ask why someone who's preparedness-minded would move to a big city like Las Vegas. Large population, no easy access to water reserves, not criticizing, just curious. Yeah, no big deal. The main reason was not preparedness related. I didn't move to Las Vegas because I think it would be better for preparedness purposes. Like I've said in my videos before, I think preparedness is something you should obviously take seriously, but it still should just be a just-in-case type thing. Your major decision should be based on if nothing goes wrong, because most of the time throughout your life, things aren't going to go wrong. So I don't think you should structure your entire life based around like, oh, what if there's a shit hit the fan scenario instead of focusing on your day-to-day life. You should do what you want to do with your life and then prepare so that if something happens, you're super well suited for. With that said, Vegas is interesting in terms of large cities because it's not structured physically like a big city, like a Chicago or something like that. It's very spread out. It's very easy to move around. The whole city is a grid of north, south, and east-west roads that are like 3 lanes going one way, a middle lane, 3 lanes going the other way. So not a bad congestion, it's not bad parking, things like that. It's really easy to move around. It's really only a typical big city in the population, and if you go down to the tourist areas like the Strip and Fremont Street. So in that sense, it's not bad in terms of crowded, cramped in there. Resources are a problem. There's not a lot of water here at all. And so obviously you need to prepare for that. That's what I'm working on now. Have some water stored. I want to get more. In some ways that would make, it depends on what the shit the fan scenario would look like. But if you're stuck in a city with no water and you have water and you can lay low for a little while, it's not going to be many people sticking around in a few months. And there is water here. There's even a natural spring in Red Rock Canyon that is less than 15 miles from where I'm at. I think it's more like 10 or 12 miles. And it's full on, spring, water coming up out of the ground. Not a lot, but it's there. It does rain here occasionally. There's culverts around my neighborhood because all the water collects into certain areas. It's not like in Florida where there's a storm drain every 5 feet. There's all the water in the whole neighborhood runs to one side on one street, and then it all flows into a culvert. So one of my plans in the event of a super serious shit the fan scenario, like a Walking Dead type thing or something like that, would be to block up the end of that culvert, fill the drainage pipe with sandbags or something until only the very top was open, so overflow. And then that way that collection area would fill up with anytime it rained. And then it would basically make like a mini river or lake with some minor work there. You would have to be careful because at least the first few times there'd be a lot of oils and stuff in the water, but you can find ways to either, let that float to the surface and get water out of the middle of a container, or find different ways to filter it, things like that. So there is water out here. And yeah, so it's basically about storing what you need. It's an isolated city. We're about 5 hours driving from any other big city. So it's unlikely that people would be storming in here from California. There's no reason to just go out into the desert to Vegas. They'd probably go north or south or out towards the coast or something like that. People aren't going to be coming from Arizona. They're not going to be coming from Denver. So it would only be the people that are here. And if you are prepared and you can hole up, I think it'd be in a lot of ways be way, way better than something like New York or Miami or even something like Gainesville, where I was before, which, has more resources there, but a lot more of these other problems. Saw your gun vid earlier, thought about alternative gunpowder just in case, like bow, slingshot, etc. Certainly those are great options. That video was specifically talking about the 5 most important guns that you should have, like the categories, or the first 5. It's not to say that you shouldn't have any of these other things. Like I even have all the guns sitting back here still. Like I talked about sniper rifles in particular. I think they're fantastic. It's just not something that I think most preparedness-minded people need. Certainly if you have those other 5 guns I was talking about. But there's absolutely great reasons why you would necessarily want things like a bow, a slingshot, etc. They all have their purposes. It's just if you were going to go out there and get 5 weapons, firearms, whatever you want to call them, I wouldn't have a bow being in that top 5. Depending on situation, if you're in a very unique situation, it might make more sense, especially if you're not in the United States and you can't have a lot of these guns. Las Vegas is Thunderdome. Yeah, it could be. Be prepared for most anything, but remember to prep for retirement too. Absolutely, and that's what I'm talking about. I mean, Jack Spirko, with all his weirdness recently, has authored that amazing line, preparing for when times get tougher, even if they don't. And looking back, I mean, you can read stuff like Mel Tappan's books from the 70s and realize that if you had dedicated your entire life to waiting for the world to end, so to speak, you would have missed out on a whole lot of stuff. And look at what's happened in the past 50 years since then. Some things have gotten worse, some things have actually gotten better, but nothing incredibly crazy has happened. There haven't been no massive shit hit the fan scenarios. There's been localized ones that prove the need for preparing, like wildfires, like weather, like riots in certain areas, stuff like that. But there hasn't been a massive grid down or WRRL shit hit the fan scenario in this country pretty much ever. So dedicating your whole life around that idea, I don't think is the best way to live your life. Roman era weapons is what you will need when the gunpowder runs out. Yeah, I mean, if it got that bad, certainly it could end up using melee weapons and things like that. But it's not that hard to stockpile 100,000 rounds of ammunition either, especially if we're talking about 22 long rifle. So Sure, get a mace here. I think I have a medieval mace sitting around here somewhere. I've got plenty of blades and swords and all other fun stuff too, but it's going to be a long time before I run out of ammunition. Viva Las Vegas. I agree. I love it out here, man. It's well suited to me. I've always liked the Southwest. I tell people that ask me, like they're thinking about moving to the Southwest. If what about Vegas, Albuquerque, whatever? I say if you're not into the Vegas type stuff, like the gambling, if you don't care about the strip and the tourist stuff, then I would go to somewhere like Phoenix or Albuquerque because it has all the other advantages that Vegas does, as far as I know, and doesn't have some of that craziness that Vegas does. Prepping for the financial system going down as best I can. I don't make a lot of money right now. I'm just furious that I can't buy more gold and silver. I don't have any extra money right now, and the prices are insane. I just want to buy as much as I possibly can. I do think a financial system collapse of some kind is the most likely major shit hit the fan scenario that could happen to the United States. Behind that would be, EMP or pandemic. EMP is iffy because no one really knows how serious that would be. There's an EMP report they did a while back where they zapped a bunch of cars and only one of them even had to be towed away. Most of them could start back up again after a few minutes. So other people are saying that even batteries and things would be fried. There's just no way to know. And but we know we have financial problems in the U.S. We know that eventually those are going to come to a head. What that exactly looks like, it's not sure, but it's gonna be problematic. So I think that's the most likely major scenario that the U.S. could face. Kintabor says, I live in Central Europe and getting an automatic firearm isn't a viable option here, as is carrying firearms outside my home. You got any other suggestions for self-defense? Look at anything that could be used as a weapon. You're talking about bows. People have mentioned air rifles before. As kind of goofy as that seems, they have a lot of those like Ruger air rifles or some of these other high-powered air rifles are as powerful, like feet per second wise, as a 22. So those are definitely options. Blades, spring. Look at Jorg Sprave's channel on Slingshot channel. He makes some pretty crazy weapons out of using the TheraBand, like therapeutic rubber. So you can be creative. Anything that could hurt somebody could be potentially used as self-defense. Repping Chick-fil-A, man. 100K rounds would make for a hell of a gunfight. It certainly would. I don't think that you would ever be able to use 100K rounds in a gunfight because you're either facing a massive force, you're doing something seriously wrong, and more importantly, you will have to be refilling magazines, which you can't really do in a gunfight unless you have a lot of people with you. So unless you have 100,000 rounds in full magazines, you just are going to run out of ammo still and might have it sitting in your closet. Kenneth H., is that a super chat? I appreciate it, guys. If you guys have any questions you want to, let me know. I will answer them. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Knuckle dusters need no gun power, super easy to carry. True, but they're also very close range. They are probably illegal in areas that, you can't have guns. So they're probably also not illegal. Gold? Question mark. What about it? I love it. Silver under 15 right now. I know, and gold's under 1,200. I back the truck up if you have the resources, guys. There is just no conceivable way that in 10 or 15 years you won't look back at 1180 gold and 1495 silver and not think that is just an amazing deal. Good calls, military brain, importance of science and firearms. Silver likely to drop to a 13 handle, but you'll be lucky to buy it at that price. Premiums will go up to protect retail margins. People say that a lot, and I think that applies to these massive institutional buyers. They always talk. They have people coming on Greg Hunter and everything, Gregory Manorino and all these other channels saying that like they can't find gold. But like for the average person, you can go on APMEX whenever you want and spend as much as you want buying silver and gold. Until you start buying in the tonnage, I don't think you're going to have a problem filling up your shopping cart with gold at the advertised premiums. I've just never gone on APMEX, no matter what the spot price is, no matter what these people are commentating on about like the premiums, everything, and not seen gold for sale at the normal premiums. So for individual people, it's still there. So whenever you get the opportunity, just grab some. Moonshine, homebrewed beer, and wine will be my cryptocurrency. Won't exactly be a cryptocurrency, but it might be able to be used for trading items. Certainly nothing wrong with moonshine and beer and wine. Those have been very valuable throughout all of human history. I was just thinking about the other day as I was walking through a casino with a friend who was visiting, and they had a sign for cold beer on tap. And I was like, ooh, cold beer, fancy place over here. It got me thinking that, throughout most of human history, they had no way of chilling any of these beverages. You would be after drinking warm beer, which seemed kind of gross to me. But maybe you get used to it after a while. And I also read somewhere that they didn't even store a lot of water on some of these shipping vessels because it didn't store all that well. It could get tainted, things like that. And get algae growing in it or whatever. So a lot of times they would store a lot more beer than they did water on some of these ships. And they would, it's mostly water, 95% water, something like that. When it hits the fan, the law on knuckle dusters will be my last concern. Certainly. But in the meantime, you have to own this thing. You have to buy it. You have to have it somewhere. So, I mean, like, once shit hits the fan, yeah, you're not worried about it. But then why not have a gun? If you're gonna ignore the laws, just go get a gun. It's because it's difficult to get it, and you don't want to end up in jail if nothing ever happens. Like I said a few minutes ago, nothing serious like that. There's been no significant widespread loss of rule of law in past 100 years or whatever in most of these Western countries. So relying on that to have these illegal things is not a good idea, in my opinion. Certainly something like a knuckle duster you could improvise anyway. So why just buy it ahead of time and keep it if it's going to be illegal? Next support level for silver is $4. I can't see it getting that low because I would seriously be like selling most of what I own to buy silver at $4. Ammo could be the new money and shit hit the fan. I think it will be very valuable. I think people make the mistake of conflating things that will be desirable and valuable with things that will be useful as a currency. It's very specific traits that something has to have to be able to be used as a currency. And simply being highly sought after is not one of them. And certainly if it's something that's consumable, like if you get a bullet, it's to use the bullet, then it's gone. And so for something to function as a currency, it has to be portable. Bullets are portable. It has to be divisible. Bullets are not divisible. You can't say, hey, I've got a .308 round and I won, these dozen eggs, but that's not worth it. So I'll give you half of my .308 round. Can't divide it. And it also has to be where you can't make more of it. And you theoretically could make more bullets, even in a shit hit the fan scenario. So they will certainly be valuable, but they will not be very useful as a currency. And that's why things like Bitcoin does have a value as a currency. It has downsides. Every different type of currency does have downsides, but it's divisible, it's portable, it can be validated, not counterfeited, things like that. So that's why gold and silver have had their value throughout human history, is because they perform all these functions very well. Sites like AppMex are already upping premiums on bars so they don't lose their ass. Sure, I mean, like they throw up the premium a little bit, but it's this idea that like premiums are going to go to $5 an ounce for silver or something like that. I'm not seeing that on the non-numismatic. If you just go buy a 10-ounce bar, 100-ounce bar, you can still get them for under $1. I mean, I'll go over to AppMex right now, see what they got, what they're working with right now. I mean, because just don't buy like stuff on Silver Eagles. The premiums will tend to shoot up, but I don't see a reason to buy exclusively Silver Eagles like that. I prefer bars just because you can get the spot price down. I think it's good to have a little bit of everything. I have Silver Eagles. So let's do bars by weight. Let's go to some 10-ounce bars. There's a lot of 10-ounce bars here that as low as 59 cents per ounce over spot if you're buying like 50 plus. Obviously, if you're buying a smaller amount of them, the premium is higher. But these aren't like crazy premiums here. They're fairly standard. Difference between barter items and currency. Yeah, I just went over that a little bit. Barter items are anything that you need or that someone else needs and you want to trade for it. That could be literally anything. Anything that someone else wants or that you want could be used as a barter item. Currency has to provide a very specific function. It has to be a store of value so that you can initiate a transaction. It has to be something that you can take with you easily. So something like a giant statue or a log or something like that, like timber isn't good because it's not portable. It has to be divisible because otherwise you can't do small and varied transactions if you can't divide it into its constituent parts. It has to be, portable, divisible. It has to have, be difficult to make more of it. You can't be able to counterfeit it or else someone could just instantly make more of it and, wouldn't, and buy whatever they wanted with fake money, basically. So, shows you that the US dollar is not a great currency because they can just make more of it. Bottle caps, yeah. A shot of alcohol came about because Cowboys used to trade bullets for a shot glass of alcohol. Sure, yeah, I mean, you can trade anything. People used to trade everything for all sorts of stuff. That doesn't mean that it would be good to use as a currency. You can't go buy a house with shots of alcohol or bullets or something like that. I mean, I guess you could if you had enough of them, but then it's still a trade. I'm not saying that you can't make a trade with any of these things. I'm just saying to perform the function as a currency, it has in an actually complex financial system, even semi-complex, it has to have those specific features. Great deals on junk silver, though. Sure, I have been avoiding I have a lot of the junk silver. Junk silver is fine when you're talking about the like pre-65 coins. That's great. I've been trying to avoid a lot of like not scrap silver, but like mixed lots of random bars from random manufacturers, because I've discovered that stuff's a lot harder to sell than just the bars, the real junk silver or the mint coins and things like that. So I've been avoiding that stuff because a little bit less that you pay isn't worth it. I like the junk silver, the actual coins. I like the silver eagles and the Canadian maples and the other, kookaburras and stuff like that that are from the government mints. But my favorite is the bars, just big ass silver bars. Love them. AppMex has these great stackable bars, which look fantastic. And there's poured bars that look great, but sometimes you're paying more. I have numismatic stuff too, just for the hell of it. So someone, Jay Fry says, I'm not giving someone the means to kill me. Sure, in a very serious survival situation, I'd be very reluctant to give up ammunition, first of all, because he's talking about trading ammo, I think. I would want to have as much as possible. Even if I had 100,000 rounds, I'd be reluctant to give away 1 or 2 of them because you never know what's going to happen. You're not going to be able to get more very, very likely. Certainly, someone else could then use that against you. So unless there's someone I really trusted and they had something that I really needed, I would not be getting rid of any of my ammunition in a shit hit the fan scenario. So I don't think silver is going down to $4. But if it does, I won't be mad. I'll be back in the truck. Whatever small truck I have will be backed up. Yeah, pre-65 is great. It's if you're really worried about it, obviously it has value as a currency, minute compared to the value of the silver, but it could never become zero no matter what happened to silver. It would always at least be worth the amount of face value of the coins, which I don't think is really a concern because it's so little compared to the silver value. But usually stick to 0.999 silver, no junk or coins for collector value. Yeah, there's no reason that you have to buy the junk deal, and certainly no reason you have to buy anything with a numismatic value. I have bought some numismatic stuff, not even like numismatic, but just stuff like from MK bars and things like that because they're so cool looking, like these silver skulls and all that. But that's not necessary at all for preparedness purposes. I think if you want to talk about preparedness purposes, and financial, stockpiling for silver, the only real 3 things that you need to mess with are the mint coins like the Eagles, some junk silver, and then big ass bars. I wouldn't go any smaller than 10-ounce bars because there's no reason to. Get an air rifle, they're backyard fun and not limited in the States. Very useful. Yeah, they're absolutely good. You can get them. They're serious ones that are about as powerful as a 22, so they're totally silent. They take longer to reload, obviously. The ammo's even cheaper because it's just pellets. And they're great for hunting small game and stuff silently, stockpiling massive amounts of ammo, things like that. So, all right, what else we got? Someone got a topic for me? We're about 30 minutes right now. Keith Warren just did a bid on double-barreled air shotgun. Also fires arrows and slugs. I'm not sure who Keith Warren is, but I know that Jorg Spray, the Slingshot channel, has done similar things. And I'm not sure what type of air you're talking about from a canister. If you're talking about like an air rifle where you just break barrel and pumps it up. But you can do all sorts of crazy stuff with compressed air. Super powerful. They have, tubes that you can shoot arrows off of compressed air, things like that. You can buy a pellet swatch too. The Nomad kit. Okay. PCP. What's that in reference to? The drug? Or is that the channel that Keith Warren's at? I'm not sure. Think anything useful is storable for trade. Certainly logical. However, there are aspects of certain other items that are more universally tradable. I like baseline storage of daily items than surplus and silver. Yeah, it depends. I mean, certainly having stuff that you already know you could eventually use, even if no one else wants it, is useful. You know, like instead of worrying about stuff for trade, just stockpile more of the things that you need, because chances are if you do end up wanting to trade, those things will be useful too. Now, I don't think that you should just put all your wealth in stockpiling resources like that, because first of all, it doesn't really make sense if you have any significant amount of money. And it only makes sense in certain situations. What if nothing happens and then in 30 years, all your money's sitting there in toilet paper and beans and things like that? You're not going to be able to have an easy way to liquidate that for a retirement fund. Whereas if you put a lot of it in gold and silver, if you do need to buy more beans and stuff like that, you can liquidate the silver. And if you just need to cash it out and live off some of that money later in life, you can do that too. What's your cooking setup for prepping? Just a basic overview, fuel type, etc. Right now, I am focusing on, I have a propane stove, like a mini camp stove, and a bunch of the propane canisters. A lot of my food storage wouldn't necessarily have to be cooked if I didn't need to. I've been talking with the guys from Sun Oven, and it looks like they're going to be able to send me a solar oven, which is my next idea for out here for being my main cooking, because it's so damn sunny and hot out here, and almost every day, even in the winter, it's just sunny. So it's a super great option, uses no fuel. You can get great temperatures out here, and that, if it works like I expect it to, I plan on making that my primary method of cooking food out here in Las Vegas. So right now, this is a combination of improvised solar cooking, propane stove, and just not having to cook certain food items. Or just cooking making a fire with scrounge for fuel. PCP is a pre-charged pneumatic. Okay, type of air gun. Gotcha. Topic idea. Most interesting current event from preparedness and shit at the fan perspective. Interesting current event from preparedness perspective. I think the wildfires that are happening in California are a good example of, not necessarily the most interesting, but a good example of something that, a real world thing that is happening that could make you have to bug out right away. People always get hung up on the idea of bugging out. They think it's a Mad Max thing. They have all these weird ideas about it. But a wildfire racing for your home, or lava flow in Hawaii, you know, you have to just leave, and you have to be ready to leave, not necessarily to go live out in the woods. So you want to structure your bug out bag accordingly. So I think that's a good example of that. Prima stove is a must or Coleman if you're American. Kerosene, sure, you can use. I do have some lamp oil, things like that I could theoretically cook over, you know, if I needed to. $10,000 in silver takes up a lot less room than $10,000 in toilet paper. Absolutely true, and it's a lot easier to get rid of. It's a lot easier to bug out with, and $10,000 in gold takes up even less space than that. You know, like just a few bars. We had a power outage for 7 days, couldn't find a generator, so I fixed that. Small generator that runs for hours on a gallon of gas. So 15 gallons of gas is doable and lasts a week. Exactly. And I think that's a fantastic example of real world, you know, everyday preparedness. And people will come at you and be like, oh, well, what if the zombies attack and then it's 3 years later and you've run out of fuel? Like, okay. So you're saying it wouldn't be better to have a few weeks worth of a generator than to not have it at all? And besides, most situations are not a zombie apocalypse. Most of them are hurricanes. Most of them are situations where your powers and resources are going to be out for a few days to a few weeks at most. And a generator is going to be extremely useful in a situation like that. Yeah, I do think it's a good strategy. It's fantastic. Anything that gets you prepared to do without systems of support for any amount of time is a good strategy for preparedness. Because think about all the things that have happened in the U.S. If you can usually run a generator like that. Yeah, you said 15 gallons will last a week. That's easy enough to store. And if you realize the situation was serious, you could probably stretch that by only using it for really serious, necessary things. Biomass rocket stove works well for all the trees in North Florida. Yes, I have a one of these stoves. I don't remember which one it was. I've got the a BioLite stove. That's what I'm thinking of, that I haven't reviewed yet. You can see it right here. And that like charges and you can see these are for a little, so I've got these in addition to the box up there. You can't see this little propane canisters and the propane camp stove right here. I have another one as well. So that's some of my main cooking. Do you have shit the fan gear that you take camping? Always looking for good camping gear. I actually do. A lot of stuff from my bug out bag I use camping, and I just went camping a few times recently. So I'm not gonna do it now because I don't have the stuff here with me. But I'm going to do a video soon exactly on that topic. And a lot of it that I've just taken with me, I've gotten from the battle boxes. So I've had some useful camping type bug out gear in these battle boxes, and worked great. Do you miss followers back here in Gainesville, Florida? Sure, man. I mean, I didn't have super beef with Gainesville or anything like that. I just lived there for 15 years. Needed to get out. Sick of the rain. Carrington event would be devastating. Absolutely. Like, we have no idea how susceptible the modern electronics would be. Everyone has different opinions from an EMP event like that. But the Carrington event actually fried a lot of like much more solid state electronics, like telegraph cables and things like that. So if it can fry something super basic, super physically solid like that, I think a lot of more fragile circuitry type electronics would be absolutely blasted. Jericho, the TV show, is awesome and very telling. I did like the show. I think it just cut out early on us. You know, they only barely got 2 seasons, I think, maybe 3. I don't remember. They had to kind of rush it at the end. Cast over. Do you mean cast iron? Because I have a cast iron skillet. They're pretty much what you need to cook on an open flame long term without ruining or warping your cookware and things like that. You want to get a cast iron, like what do they call those? The pots, things like that. If you're going to cook in one of these big solar ovens, it's going to be a welfare apocalypse. Certainly could be. I mean, when if the government ever gets to a point where they can't issue these checks, we've seen situations in the past where, I forget what city it was. It was Tennessee or Kentucky, I think, maybe somewhere in the southeast like that. And one of these welfare payments was delayed in a city by something like 12 hours, and there was already a mini riot down at the office. People banging on the building and things like that. I keep a roll of silver and gold in my bug out bag. Many Jews were able to get out of Germany by bribing border guards during World War II. Yeah, that's one reason. I mean, obviously having a way to give people value in a situation where maybe not even cash would work, and it's easy to carry. It's another great reason. How much gas do you store? I shy away from more than 20 gallons, non-ethanol, but still end up pouring more than half of my truck to rotate. Yeah, I don't think if you're starting to give above 25 or 30 gallons, it can be a little bit problematic in these cans. These cans are actually empty right now. I need to fill them up. I have the stable storage right here. I'm trying to find out where I want to put it in this place that I'm renting now, because the garage here in Vegas gets very, very hot, but I don't like the idea of just storing gasoline inside the house. So right now I don't have my gas tanks full. I just have the fuel for the stove and everything. So I'm kind of trying to figure out, if you guys have any thoughts on that, let me know what the best plan is for storing small to medium amounts of gas in an area that's extremely warm like this, because I don't want the cans to like blow up in the garage when it gets to 120 degrees. But I also don't feel super comfortable having 25 gallons of gasoline in the bedroom next to where I'm sleeping. But I think that normally I typically store 25 to 30 gallons for that. Who's asking? Yeah, 11 Bravos love to camp. I mean, maybe it could do that to you. It could make you hate it, depending on your constitution. I was not an 11 Bravo, but I still had to sleep in the dirt a few times. A Dutch oven, that's what I was thinking of. Thank you. The little cast iron Dutch oven, those are great for cooking over fires and solar cookers and things like that. Harbor Freight has decent cast iron cookware. Yeah, cast iron is something that you're not in too much of a risk buying the cheap version, because it's a lump of iron. There's not a whole hell of a lot that they can do to fuck that up. Yeah, definitely rotate car with the gas. The I write on there with I have tape that I put on the can, and I write on with the permanent marker the date that you can either put the date that you put it in or the date that you need to cycle it by, and use the stay build to make it last longer. I wouldn't wait more than 5 or 6 months, because even if you can last a year with it, if there's an event that happens at month 8 or whatever, then the gas will only be good for the next 2 months. I have a lot of bottled water stored. I also have a 20,000 gallon in-ground pool and would likely rely on that for water. Would you say that's a viable option or a bad idea? It's definitely a viable option. It's 20,000 gallons of water. I mean, you can drink pool water. It probably, as of right now, has an incredible amount of chlorine in it. So if there is a shit hit the fan scenario, you would want to stop putting the chlorine in it. I'll have to look up exactly how long it would take for the chlorine to off gas to where it would be safe for you to drink a lot of it. But in the meantime, you could use it for washing clothes, flushing toilets, and you could drink. Like, I mean, if you wander out of the desert and there's a swimming pool there, with all the chlorine in it and you drink it, you're probably not going to die. So the thing that you'll have to do though is, probably a few days or a week of not adding chlorine, and it should be totally fine. And then just run it through the filter that you would anyway. So you still need to have filter because it will start growing algae and there'll be detritus in it and things like that. You might want to get a tarp or something big enough, a pool cover to put over that. So in the event of a shit fan scenario, you can keep animals out, you can keep evaporation to a minimum, things like that. But yeah, this pool's an excellent source of water. No reason why it's not, unless it's contaminated in some way. Wildfires every year, it seems. Does seem like it. I think some of that goes back to the fact that we are having instant access to all this information. So no matter where it is, we're hearing about it. But they have been pretty serious lately. I went down the diesel kerosene route because petrol is so volatile. Yeah, diesel and kerosene are much more stable. They last longer. They don't combust as easily. And if you have a diesel vehicle, that's an advantage too, because you can improvise fuel with vegetable oil and things like that in ways that you just can't do for gasoline engines. And also, there's so few diesel vehicles out there in terms of normal transportation that in a situation like a gas crisis, diesel will probably be the last to go in some of these residential style gas stations because people would be looking for regular gas and not nearly as many people will have diesel. Plastic gas cans need to vent. Don't tighten up the nozzle. Yeah, exactly. Dig a deep hole for the gas. That's an option. You can dig a pit out there and then keep it cool that way. 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Cast iron is gold. What's up, LT? What's going on? Were you somebody I know from back in the Army? Gojo Chris. Try to convert to and store diesel. Yeah, just like I was talking about. It's way more stable in last years. That's true. You can use it in oil. Yeah, you can get those dual fuel lanterns and use diesel. You can use it in all sorts of ways. Alpha Company 53rd. All right, on. Yep. The old stomping grounds. 53rd BSB. A few years ago. Out in Vegas now. For a while, after I got out, I grew my hair out. Did that whole thing. And now I'm back to the more decent haircut. Still not Army eligible. All right, guys. I think I'm going to cut this thing off here in a second. So if you got any last minute questions, let me know. Oh, who this motherfucker right here? Tell me, Brian Wiley. Take that civilian money and buy a lavalier mic. I don't have any civilian money. I made a lot more money when I was in the Army. Good stuff. That's funny. Yep, you can tell everybody in the Alpha Company I'm internet famous. Sort of. MOS, I was an 88 Alpha, which is a transportation officer. Yep. I don't think I ever got lost either. I was one of the rare lieutenants who was decent at land nav. The one thing I was bad at with the land nav was my night vision is not good. So I would, every time I did night land nav qualification, I would be like, this is it. This is the time I get totally lost. Going to be wandering out here forever. Never going to find my body. And then I'm like, oh, there's the point right there. Because I was so bad at being able to see at night, I would compulsively check my pace count and terrain features and anything that I could. So I actually ended up doing pretty decently. What to use for mosquitoes? Out here in Vegas, it's not really a concern. There's not almost any biting insects. In Florida, it was a massive concern. There was mosquitoes everywhere. There's only a few options that you have. You have to have something like a bug spray of some kind or something that drives them away, like citronella candles, things like that, which don't work too well. So the only things that actually work are serious bug spray like DEET or a physical barrier like mosquito netting, which that's what I would recommend, certainly for camping or a bug out bag. You can even get like a long sleeve, almost like a jacket that's made out of mesh so that you're not overheating, but it still stops the mosquitoes from getting to you. But even with that, if it's laying against your skin, it will they can stab you right through it. So I would get one of those mosquito nets that actually have the rings, you know, and hold it away from your head, and then just try to cover up. You can use, if you have electricity, fans will keep them away. Things like citronella candles and a smoky fire help, but serious bug spray or the mosquito netting is really the only thing that will actually stop them from biting you. Our commander once got lost coming to the Army. Which commander? I don't even know who the commander is right now. It was, yeah, Captain Wentz, and then we had Captain Holly coming back from, oh, it's Holly. I don't think she liked me at all, man. So she got back coming to the Army. She's been there a while, hasn't she now? At this point, how's she getting lost? I moved to Vegas because I just felt like it. I always liked the Southwest. I liked things like poker and things like that. I wanted to be in a bigger city than in Gainesville, and I was sick and tired of the rain and the mosquitoes and things like that, but I definitely like sunny, hot places. So Trump slide 2020, absolutely. It's happening. I mean, just look at the approval ratings. They're even higher, slightly higher than Obama was at this point in his presidency. His approval rating amongst like minority groups like black voters and stuff has almost doubled since the election. Like most people's lives are just better now than they were a few years ago, and people aren't going to want to just mess with that for no reason. So unless something, I mean, we'll see how the midterms shake out. I don't think we're going to be seeing this blue wave that everyone, not everyone, but some people are predicting. I don't think we're going to necessarily see a red wave either, but I think it'll sort of maintain where we're at now. And I think that unless something significant happens with the economy, like a massive economic downturn, then yeah, I think for sure he's going to win 2020. I think it'll be if nothing changes between now and 2020, he's going to win huge. First few months she was there. Okay, yeah, that was probably before I was even there then, because she, in my unit, I went to Kuwait, and then when I came back, she was already the commander there, I think. So I'm not sure when she started there, but it was probably while I was gone. We've gone too far left. We need to at least recenter. I agree. I mean, it's interesting because demographic-wise, the United States is a left-wing country. If everyone had to vote, they were forced to, and even without any fraud or anything, like it was just all of a sudden a drone showed up in your face and you had to hit the button, the conservative people would never win. Most of these people in a lot of these big cities and stuff, they're just not voting, you know, and among the actual people who vote, it's closer. And because of the electoral college, it gives us a better shot because by numbers alone, it's way skewed. Even if you factor in any sort of fraud or illegal voting, there's still more people that would vote blue than red in these major elections by numbers. By location, most of the country is actually conservative, but by numbers, it definitely skews leftist. So it's interesting. Didn't your girlfriend stay in Florida? Did she move too? She moved. She stayed initially. I drove out here with a friend of mine who's also moving to the area because I had to find a place to rent that we could have the dogs, because we have 2 dogs. One of mine is a giant pit bull. You've seen Mongo in some of my videos. So I couldn't just rent any place. There's a lot of restrictions. Every time I looked at even this like pets okay, it would say 30-pound limit or only 1 or things like that. Like, my dog's head is 30 pounds. So it took me a while. And then once I found the place to rent, signed the lease, then I flew back, drove up with her and all the stuff in a truck out to Vegas. That is a hell of a drive. 2,200 miles. I had to do it twice in about 3 months. Yeah. Try Sawyer's picaridin lotion for mosquitoes. Okay, interesting. That's the millennial attitude for you. Yeah, probably. There's still the cabal military-industrial complex and Soros and Rothschilds and Federal Reserve issues going on. Yeah, I mean, there's all this stuff that it's hard to tell how much of this is really some sort of cabal, as they say, or just the human nature and people acting in their own messed up interests, or not even acting in there, just acting according to their ideology at every level. Because you see people at the low levels who are actually just true believers in this nonsense. So it's not hard to imagine that someone like Soros is just a true believer as well. And he's obviously trying to manipulate a lot of stuff. But is it part of some grand global scheme? Who knows? It doesn't really matter, in the sense that the things that they're trying to do are the same either way. I vote for California to secede from the U.S. That would be fantastic. I also am okay with the idea of them breaking up into like the 4 states or whatever, because right now, L.A. County is just decides the way the entire state goes, just because they have, just like I was saying about the number of voters. So it would take away some of their electoral votes, because right now LA County just decides where like all 55 electoral votes go. How safe do you feel in Vegas versus Florida? Depends on what you mean. I mean, Florida is a big place. Gainesville is not a risky place at all. Specifically, there are places in Florida that really are. Vegas has to be slightly more unsafe in that respect than Gainesville, but not something that's noticeable. In terms of a shit the fan scenario, Vegas has less resources, but it's also fairly isolated from anything out, other big cities and things like that. So I don't feel any difference. I mean, if you're wandering down the Strip or something, or in Fremont Street, there's definitely shittier parts of Vegas than there are back when I was in Florida, but I don't go there. And you can get a concealed carry permit. I haven't got mine yet because I just had to switch it's interesting because my Florida concealed carry permit, they had reciprocity with, but once I became a Nevada citizen or resident, now I don't have the Florida one anymore, so I have to get another one. But you can't open carry here, so I don't feel unsafe. But I guess if I had to say in comparison versus Gainesville, yeah, it's less safe. Permethrin is what is good to use for insects. Yeah, you can actually get a lot of outdoor clothing that is coated with permethrin, and as opposed to keep the mosquitoes away. Do you need to have a permit to carry plastic straws? Not here in Vegas, as far as I know. It's Californians that are freaking out about that. But the straw thing is hilarious because what a lot of people don't know is all the plastic in the ocean. And it is a problem. There's a lot of plastic waste in the ocean. It's causing a lot of problems. It's hurting wildlife. None of that is coming from even North America. And certainly none of it's coming from the U.S. Something like 96% of plastic waste in the ocean comes from 6 river systems in the world. Only one of them is in the Americas at all, and it's in South America. All other 5 of them are in Asia and Africa. So all this waste it's dumping into the oceans is coming exclusively from China, India, Africa, and like one river system in South America and most of it's Southeast Asia. So we could actually completely eliminate every scrap of plastic in the United States that has ever made it into the water, and it wouldn't even make a noticeable difference. So people in California bitching about straws and shit it's just as meaningless. It has nothing to do with the problem. You can keep 15 hippies from throwing a straw into a landfill that ends up somewhere in the desert, and meanwhile, literal tons of plastic waste are just being thrown into the water by a bunch of people in China and India and just flowing out into the ocean in just massive, massive quantities. Did 110 horsepower IROC Z survive the trip? I wish I had an 84. I'm an 84. No, did I not tell you about this is for Wiley. Did I not tell you about my car? You had to know about that. I had a 01 SS Camaro, which is awesome. I love that thing. Had the Mad Max like pistol grip shifter, had the T-tops, bore like catback exhaust and headers, and the test pipe bypassing the catalytic converter. Thing was so loud that my girlfriend wouldn't even drive it. She said it was obnoxious. It was fantastic. And I swear I didn't race that thing or anything other than maybe at an occasional stoplight. But I go out one day to start it, and it sounds like a cement mixer. It's like, and I was like, oh my God, this thing is completely fucked. And I got it checked out, and it must have thrown a rod or something, and they said it's cooked. You'll have to replace the engine. And at that point, I didn't have the $6 or $7 grand or whatever, so I just sold it to some guy locally for like $1,200 or something, because he said he was going to drop a new engine in it, and which really pissed me off because he lived right around the corner, and he did drop an engine in it, and then he would drive by my house like waving at me and like driving my car, and he was like, oh, it's horrible. So no, it didn't even survive to make the trip. I had I went through several cars because I had the van that I was using for this crusty rape van that I was using for my auction business, and I had and the Camaro. When the Camaro blew up, I drove just the van for a while, but it didn't have air conditioning because it was a crappy work van. And then when I got the settlement from my lawsuit against the Gainesville Police Department, I bought a grandma car, which is like 2008, I think, Toyota Corolla. About a year later, that was murdered, and I have the dash cam video on my channel of me getting smashed from behind in that car. So that car only lasted about a year, and after I bought it. And then I bought the Volkswagen that I have now, an 06 Jetta, which is another grandma car. So I've either had really boring cars or really cool cars, because I've had the Camaro, and then I had, for a while in college, I had a 77 Corvette, which was fantastic. Loved that car. Yeah, all the plastic in the ocean does come from Asia. Oh, and Wiley, my car was like 380 horsepower, not 110, so suck it. What do you have now? Did you get rid of the Subi? A plastic spork will get you the death penalty in California. Yeah, probably. Do you think solar power is viable alternative power source? No question. I mean, it's replacing an increasing amount of traditional sources of electricity more every year. It's becoming increasingly efficient. If I had a house, I would especially in a place like this in Vegas, where you get 330 days of sun or something a year, I would unquestionably replace it with solar. That'll be no good for Popeye's chicken place. What won't? I don't know. The sporks. I had an 83 Z28 with T-tops back then. T-tops are the shit, man. I don't know why they don't do that more often, or the removable hardtop coupes are great too. Convertibles, I don't like. They look great when the top's down, but they look like shit when the top's up, and they don't last very long. The fabric gets faded or tattered. So the T-tops or the removable hardtop are the way to go. And then you at least have the beam too, if you roll that bitch. Yeah, thank you. A moment of silence for my poor engine. No, my license plate for my van was not butt loving. It was hilarious. Okay, so the van was, like I said, a cargo van. Looked like a creepy rape van. I was a fan of the Punisher comic books, so I wanted, and he has a battle van in the Punisher comic books. So I came up with different iterations for trying to make the license tag say battle van, and it said, a lot of people thought it said bat lovin', because it was like BATTLVN. I thought that the fact that it was a van was the obvious part, so I was trying to spell as much of battle as possible, when I should have just done like BATLVAN, battle van, so I wouldn't get the butt loving jokes. Good times, good times. Okay, Gojo Chris saying, wait, what did you not do? And what's that in reference to? I missed my straight 6 72 Dodge Dart Swinger. Yeah, man, old cars are great. The one that I really want is like a 70 or 71 Chevelle, like he has in Jack Reacher or stuff like that. Just a beautiful. Oh, what did I not do? I didn't do it, actually, the lawsuit with the cops. I absolutely didn't. That's when I won the lawsuit. I got pulled over while riding a bicycle, of all things, for not having for allegedly not having the proper lighting on it, because it was late at night. And the cop told me to show an ID, and I said, I'm not even required to carry an ID to ride a bicycle. And I was like, so why don't you show me some ID? And he almost immediately put me in handcuffs. And then after getting all these other cops over there and everything, like half an hour sitting there, them rooting through all my stuff, finding out that I don't actually have drugs or any of that stuff, they decided to still send me to jail for the night, which is ridiculous because I hadn't done anything illegal beyond the alleged infraction, which isn't even a crime. You know, they could have given me a $25 ticket or something like that. So they decided to send me to jail. And so then I filed a complaint, and I told them, hey, look, I didn't do anything that was an arrestable offense. I'm not required to even carry an ID to ride a bicycle, let alone show it and all this stuff. So I beat the ticket. I showed up to court to fight the ticket, and they were like, oh, we're dismissing the charges. And I was like, pfft. And the judge was like, are you okay with that? And I was like, yeah, man. I mean, all this, and you're not even going to let me cross-examine you, but that's fine. So the ticket was dismissed, and then I ended up suing them. And I told them the interesting part, and I've done videos on this before on my channel, is that I was like, I don't need it. I'm not doing this for money. If you get the officer who arrested me or the chief of police to film an apology saying that they were wrong, I will not take a dime. And they refused to do it. They instead chose to pay me 10 grand in a settlement. So that's what happened, because they're chicken shits. I never had a cool car in my life, but I've had cool motorcycles and a couple really fast boats. But cars have always been trucks. It's probably the way to do it because you can get a lot cooler of a motorcycle for less price than it takes to get a really cool car. And trucks are just useful. I am aching to get another motorcycle. I sold my Sportster before I came out here because I already had to take 2 trips and a truck, and I didn't want to have to put a trailer with the bike on it or drive it separately or ship it. And I wanted to upgrade to like one of the big twin engines too, like a Fat Bob or something like that. I just had the 1200 Sportster anyway, but I haven't been able to get one yet. I don't have enough money yet, so I cannot wait. Every day I'm like looking online at motorcycles, and I just can't wait till I have enough money again to buy another one, another Harley. Love them. Yeah, I don't have a beef with police at all. That's what people don't understand is that they think it's this all or nothing thing where you have to be like, oh, Black Lives Matter, blocking the road, police are always dickheads, or you have to be some kind of bootlicker and everything they say is just awesome. And it's just like anything else. They're people. They fuck up, and I think they should be held accountable when they do. But they also have an incredibly difficult job, and a lot of times they are doing the right thing. And people pick the weirdest cases to get mad about. They tend to publicize the ones where it's some obvious shithead who's doing obvious crime, and then they just get mad at the police. Whereas something that happens like with my situation, or one where some guy in other cases where other people, they really didn't do anything wrong, and those just get swept under the rug. It's totally baffling. And I think they need to stop protecting the cops who do dumb shit, and they need to 100% back up the cops that are doing the right thing instead of this weird hybrid situation that we have now. It's all based on how much public outcry there is. Should online poker be legalized in the U.S.? Absolutely. I'm fairly libertarian when it comes to vice laws like that, and I love poker. I grew up, in college playing way, way too much online poker, but it definitely should be legalized. Wiley will be home from D.C. around March. Oh, dude, you guys got to come out here to Vegas, man. It's a blast. Total blast. Are you a colonel yet? Are you even a major yet? Kelly says I have an 08 Heritage Softail, black and chrome. Nice, nice. Instead of a motorcycle, get yourself a hippie e-bike or some scooter. You watch your mouth. Do you have a PS4? I don't. I actually am not a gamer at all. I grew up playing all these console games because my brother was big into them. So we would play the GoldenEye, we would play Smash Brothers and Pod Racers and Diddy Kong Racing and all these other multiplayer games. And then when I was early in college, I had a friend who would basically force me to get a couple of these first-person shooter games. He would just oh no, let me down. You don't have to play it, but I'm gonna download it real quick. And I'd be like, get off my computer, it's too slow. And he would just basically force these games on me. So I played a couple of the Star Wars games like Jedi Academy and stuff, and Unreal Tournament. But once it got into the Counter-Strike era and everything like that, it just surpassed me, man. I just like to go in there, fart around a little bit, but you had to have super machines to handle it, and these people were so fucking good. You get your ass kicked by some annoying little 12-year-old. It's not my thing, man. So I really don't play video games. I haven't played serious video games in years. I don't have any consoles. I don't have any games loaded on my computer. My son is a state cop. Google Nate Dawson, Washington Highway Patrol if you want to hear about the shootout he was in. Ooh, hopefully he was okay. My brother is a Brevard County Sheriff's deputy. So he's has some crazy stories for me. The amount of the brains he's seen on the highways out there defies belief. He has some interesting stories too. The media are most at fault for the publicity given to shitheads. I mean, that's what's crazy because we were talking about my commander at my previous unit. She was I'm assuming, a police officer, and she was tiny. She was 5'0", and couldn't have been more than 110 pounds. And so it always would seem strange to me because my brother, who I was talking about, he's 6'3", probably 220. And even myself, well, I'm not small, but I was if I became a cop, there's a lot of these guys out there. I would not want to just start having to wrestle with some giant dude. And if these guys attack you, what do? If you obviously have your force continuum, but you could be put in a lot of hairy situations. And I'm saying that as someone who's done jujitsu, who's stronger, even though I don't look it, stronger than probably 95% of people on the planet. And yeah, you could be put in some hairy situations. So I don't know what these little tiny dudes or these women really do. You just always have to call for backup anytime someone even starts to get a little bit ornery, you're just like, oh shit, send 5 cops over. I mean, like, what do you do? Yeah, she does need a beanbag shotgun. Hello, do you know my sister? She says she went to high school with you. Mike Hunt. I'm guessing that's not your real name. I don't know. Who's your sister? Did you keep your motorcycle brain bucket or riding leathers? Oh yeah, I kept all that. I have the gloves. I have, because I'm absolutely am getting, yeah, Diddy Kong was the shit. I absolutely am getting another motorcycle. It's just a matter of time. And so I have 2 helmets. I have the brain bucket and the full face modular helmet. So like the visor opens or the whole front face moves. Got my jackets, got my boots, all that stuff. Because it's only a matter of time until I get another one. Can you show feet? No thanks. Her name is D. Your sister D? I'm going to need more than that if you're being serious and not just making a dick joke. Purposefully creating divisions in its society. What are your thoughts on what social media has done to Alex Jones? D's nuts. There it is. What are your thoughts on what social media has done to Alex Jones? It's atrocious. It's just not surprising. It's absolutely abominable and completely predictable. So they're writing, I forget who wrote about this, but it's absolutely true, that the social media platforms and big media and things like that are riding a very tight line right now where they're actively banning and not even just trying to hide the fact. They're past the shadow banning. They've admitted to doing that. They just don't call it shadow banning. They are actively banning people just because they don't like their politics and their stances, hiding behind the thinnest veneer of excuses of hate speech and all this stuff. But if they start just banning too many people, their already fragile platforms are just going to collapse. If people know they really can't do anything on there, or if half, not even half, but if a significant portion are kicked off, then they really will just go start creating their own platforms. And people with a market, or not a market, but an audience like Alex Jones really needs to be doing that. He has the resources and the following to make his own platforms. And that's what he needs to do. And I think Vox Day has talked about this a lot. He's absolutely right. Because it's not something that someone like you or I, most people can just go make another YouTube. We can't just go make another Twitter. There is like Gab and things like that that are alternatives. And that's what they risk doing. The more people they kick off, the more people they're going to force onto these other platforms that in some ways are a lot better. You don't have to deal with this shit. In some ways they're not better, but that's where they're at right now. So it's not too much of a concern in that sense. I mean, we may get some sort of weird internet bill of rights. We may get some sort of nationalizing of them, treating them more like a power or a utility company. Who knows? But we're in a very interesting spot. I absolutely denounce any of the bans like that. And I think it's stupid, but it's it's damaging to them. It's only going to hurt them in the long run. If no feet, I'm going. Bye. You don't want to see my feet. There's other people with better feet than me, I'm guessing. Greeting from Puerto Rico, U.S. territory. What's up, Puerto Rico? A lot of people confuse defending Alex Jones' right to free speech with defending his views. That's annoying. Exactly. Yeah, it has nothing to do with him. I don't care. I mean, like I said, I'm very libertarian when it comes to that. I think that you should be able to say whatever the hell you want. I don't even agree with these people who say shouting fire in a crowded theater is not free speech. It absolutely is free speech by definition of free speech. You either can literally say, when you're talking about just words, say whatever you want, or it's not free speech. What people don't understand is the difference between injury and then the steps you can take to redress that legally versus the speech itself. If I just stand up and say, fire, and it's in a crowded movie theater, and everyone's like, shut the fuck up, sit down. There's no way that should be illegal. Just the act of saying it, just the words, written, spoken, whatever. There's no words that should be able to be punished. Now, if something happens as a result of your actions, even if those actions are words, then someone should be able to either sue or criminally go after you. So, for example, I stand up and I yell, fire! And someone starts running out the door and they trip and smash their head open and they die. Their family should be able to sue me, or maybe I can go to prison for some sort of manslaughter or something because my actions caused this person, either negligent or malicious, caused this person to die. It wasn't because I'm being punished for the words themselves. I'm being punished for what I did. So obviously, you have situations where, like people are, not long ago, some girl got in trouble for like telling some guy to kill himself. I don't even think that should be illegal. I think that's horrible, but he still made a choice in that sense. But the words themselves, for anybody like Alex Jones, should not be. So if this family, you know, they are suing him, the family of the Sandy Hook people are suing him for saying that he caused people to go to and harass them by saying it was a fake event or something like that. So we'll see how that shakes out. I don't necessarily think that that process is wrong if they really feel like his actions caused them to suffer. But simply saying it shouldn't be illegal. And that process of redressing that grievance exists outside of YouTube, you know, so they shouldn't care about that stuff. Last September, there were no rules when Hurricane Maria destroyed the island. Yeah, I believe it, man. I believe it. Elizabeth and my brother wants to see my feet, not other people. If you are for the Constitution, then you have to take the hate speech, which everything else for the First Amendment. Exactly. I mean, First Amendment for speech is not that popular. You either are free to say what you want, or you're not free to say anything you want. And if there's anything that you can't say, then you don't have 100% free speech. You might have mostly free speech, if that means anything, but you do not have free speech if there's anything you can't say. There are still families without commercial electricity. That's insane. That's months ago. That's months ago. So that's wild. That can show you this is a real shit the fan scenario. This is why like generators, solars would be fantastic if it didn't get ripped off your roof or something. But that's a real world shit the fan scenario in Puerto Rico. All right, guys, what time is it? I think I'm going to call it. Thanks everybody for making this first live stream successful. I plan on doing this at least once a week. Hopefully, it's a lot of fun. And if you guys want to throw up some questions or topics or anything, I'll first, if you're on Patreon, post it there and I'll go through those first. If not, you can just show up on the chat and whatnot. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you later.